Let's talk about sleep training. The most controversial thing I've ever talked about on my page, but I feel like going through the sleep training journey online, I kept seeing really polarizing content that was either like, we slept train, it was the best decision we've ever made, or people being like, if you sleep train, you are an absolute evil monster. So I really didn't see a ton of content that I could personally relate to with the experience we had. First, I just want to say this is neither a video judging anyone who's chosen to sleep train or an endorsement of sleep training. This is just my personal experience. Okay, short backstory just to give you an idea of where my head was at. I was adamantly, and I mean adamantly, against sleep training all throughout my pregnancy and for the first probably 4 months of Archer's life. As soon as we got him back to his birth weight and we didn't have to wake him up for feeds, he was sleeping through the night. So of course, when I had a child that was already sleeping through the night without me having to do any sleep training, I was feeling like, why would anyone sleep train their child? Like, it was very hard for me to understand. We got humbled real quick. When Archer hit the 4-month sleep regression, he started waking up every 45 minutes throughout the night. He was still sleeping in our room at the time, and I had no plans of moving him out of room until he was like 5 years old. I genuinely thought he was gonna be in our room forever. I didn't want him to leave. I won't talk about the sleep deprivation we were going to too extensively, just because I think that could honestly be a video within itself, but it got really, really bad. There was a couple nights that I thought that he was in the bed with us and I woke up screaming. There was one night that I shattered a glass on the floor and stepped in it while I was holding him. I was so sleep deprived that I was hallucinating, and so was my husband. And my husband was up all night with us trying to help us with whatever he could, but Archer was exclusively breastfed and didn't really take a bottle at that time, so it was pretty much all on me, even though my husband would get up with us in the night to be a support system. We endured about 3 months of that severe, brutal sleep deprivation, the waking up like every 45 minutes, and it got to a point where I did start to get a little bit curious about sleep training, especially when you're so sleep deprived and you keep seeing content like, I sleep training was the best decision, and I kept talking to friends that said their baby cried for 3 nights and then they got 12 hours for the rest of it. Our friends referred us to a gentle sleep consultant company. So we did an intro call with them where we were told things were like so gentle, we could do everything at our pace, whatever we were comfortable with. And obviously, as someone who was very much so against sleep training at the time, this sounded right up my alley. So we went ahead and signed up with her, and then she created us a custom plan. Reading through the plan, she recommended doing something called the wave method, which actually did seem gentle enough. It said like 3 minutes of crying, and then you can go do a check-in, and if they stopped crying, you would reset that timer. She basically said we could start the timer whenever we felt uncomfortable. So like, even if he wasn't fully crying, but even if he started kind of like fussing, we could set the timer, which I liked because I didn't want it to escalate to like screaming his head off. First time, it was really hard on me, but I feel like it was even harder on my husband. He is a really big softie, and he was struggling with it for sure. But we only had 1 3-minute interval of him like fussing / crying, and then he went to bed and he slept great. And he did wake up 1 or 2 times to feed that night, but everything went amazing. I do need to mention, on our intake form, it asked if we used any form of bouncing crib like the Snoo or the Cradlewise, and we did put down that we used the Cradlewise, which was unfortunately overlooked by our sleep consultant, who was the owner of the company. So I was a little bit frustrated, and I'll explain why. So the next night we had literally 1 minute of crying. He was sleeping. He did wake up 1 time throughout the night. I wasn't interested in night weaning or dropping feeds because he was only 7 months old, and I told her that from the beginning. So me and my husband were like, okay, this is magic. We should have done this a long time ago. He's sleeping so good. He's only waking up 1 time, whatever. About day 3, we're like, he's doing so great. And we sent her a picture of him in his crib, and it said that it was bouncing him. And she said, hey, do you have the bounce turned on his crib? We were like, yeah, we told you that, girl. What are you talking about? And she's like, I am so sorry, but that basically undoes all the work that we've done. He's not falling asleep independently. He's being rocked, and that's going to create a sleep association and a problem. And when I tell you, I think right then and there, that's where the whole problem of sleep training, I don't mean to blame it on this one person, but I think that it made me second guess myself, second guess the entire process, and I think it really discouraged me. So we turned off the rocking feature on the crib, and things did not go well. He did not adapt to sleep training at all. So we had scheduled 7 days time with her. We ended up paying for an additional week, and then we ended up paying for even more time with her. And she was wanting us to let him cry more than I was comfortable with. And I think that she was kind of pushy with that. And I think that we kept meeting pushback because I was feeling so much mom guilt for letting him cry. And she just kept saying, oh, you need to be consistent with the process. so then it was making it feel like it was my fault that it was taking longer and he was inevitably crying longer. She also was very firm that we had to sleep train naps, and in hindsight, I do not believe that you need to sleep train naps and nighttime sleep at the same time. I actually wish I would have never done that because naps were a million times harder and it made me feel like I was gonna have a mental breakdown. I'm gonna be really, really candid with you guys. I definitely let my child cry more than I was comfortable with, and it's really one of the biggest regrets I think now as a mom looking back. I was so sleep deprived and I was so desperate to teach him these sleep skills that I think I really did something I wasn't comfortable with by letting him cry longer than I was comfortable with. And this is not to say this to shame moms that like did sleep training and had a good experience with it or whatever. It was my own moral compass that I was going against, and in hindsight I still don't really feel right about it. And I think that that's what made sleep training so hard for me, was I was never fully comfortable with it. I always felt like it was something I was forcing myself to do. So we got done with the sleep training program with her and it didn't work. I told her multiple times throughout, like, I'm just gonna give up, like I don't want to do this, I don't like this at all. And she just would kept sending me paragraphs and being like, you need to do it, push through all this stuff. And I was crying every day at this time. I have videos looking back where I'm sobbing my eyes out because it was taking such a toll on me. After the training ended with her, I decided to just take a break and stop. I just was like, this is not for us and I'm not gonna keep doing it. I didn't feel right about it in my heart. So we went back to waking up every 45 minutes basically. And I got back to a point again, probably 2 months later, around like the 8-9 month mark, where I was extremely sleep deprived, losing my mind. And I had someone recommend the Ferber method to me, like a modified Ferber method. So I decided to give that a shot and I did like the 3-minute, 5-minute, whatever. I will say that actually I think did work probably the best out of everything. I did see an improvement. He never cried longer than 10 minutes. I do think that was more helpful. I think the more intervention with the wave method and us always second guessing ourselves, like, oh, did he stop crying? Did he not? Actually made things a lot worse because we kept going in there over and over. And I think he was trying to resettle a lot of the time. He was just fussing around. And then I would go in there and it would make him mad. I'd go put his pacifier in his mouth and then it was like really bad. So I do think the Ferber method helped a little bit, but again, I wasn't able to be consistent. And that's kind of the reoccurring theme throughout my whole experience, is I was just not able to be consistent with sleep training. I don't have the stomach for it. And I wish I would have just accepted that a long time ago and realized this is not for us. I don't have to do this. No one's forcing me to do this. But I think that I felt like it was something I was doing wrong and I was failing, instead of just thinking, you know what, this is just not for us. This is not for our family. Now, I have a lot of people in my life that did sleep train their child and they were like, it was literally the best thing we ever did. And it didn't take that long. It literally for them was like 3 nights. So I don't want to completely bash sleep training. I am not a doctor. I don't study child sleep. And I'm also not going to sit here and ever judge moms that need to do what they need to do. I think another thing is when I was going through the sleep training process, I would feel pretty confident about it and I would feel like, okay, we are making leaps and bounds. And then I would go on Reddit or TikTok and I would look up sleep training, just watch these videos that were like, you're an actual monster if you're doing this to your child. It's child abuse. And there's so much content like that online. And by the way, some people are so sleep deprived as moms that they are not wanting to be here anymore. And that was the point that I was at, where I honestly thought I might have to go to a mental hospital. So I think the way that we talk about sleep training, I think it needs to have a little bit more nuance to it. I understand you feel defensive of children, but the truth is we have a lot of mixed information of whether sleep training is good or if it's bad. We actually don't have any concrete information that sleep training has any negative impact on a child. But one thing we do have a plethora of research on is the fact that maternal mental health is one of the biggest markers of a child's happiness. So that's kind of something that I would tell myself when I was beating myself up. I cannot be a healthy mother if I don't get sleep. So I had a weird experience with sleep training. I never fully committed to it. I wouldn't really say that Archer was ever sleep trained. He's about to be 1 year old in 3 weeks and he sleeps pretty well. He normally wakes up about 1 time throughout the night and I bring him in my bed for like the last 3 hours of the morning. But the extended periods of time of crying, and a lot longer than I was comfortable with, that I did a couple nights, I feel like they haunt me. I really feel like those nights haunt me. I can remember back to lying in my bed sobbing, and I heard a lot of people say, oh, just put headphones in or leave the house, whatever. I could not do that because I was like, if he's gonna have to cry and suffer, like I need to suffer with him because I'm the one doing this basically. So I I think it was just a lot of extra stress on both of us and pressure I wish I wouldn't have done. So I'm sure people will ask me, okay, what about next time around? Next time you have a child, are you gonna sleep train? And here's kind of what I've been thinking about that. I think every kid is really different. So I'm obviously gonna see how my next child sleeps in the first place, and hopefully we don't even have a need for that. If we were having trouble with sleep, I would wait until about the 6-month mark to see if we had any improvement. And again, if we didn't, I would pick one solid method and stick to it for an entire week. And if it didn't work for us, then that would be it. And I'm done. And I don't want to beat myself up too much because I really was just like doing what I could to survive at that time. I guess my only advice to a parent that could be considering whether they should sleep train or not is to ask yourself, are you doing this because it's something you want to do, or are you doing it because it's something you think you should do or other people are telling you should do? And then I guess the second thing I would ask yourself is, after trying it maybe for one night, is this something you can realistically actually commit to? Because if I would have been honest with myself, the answer would have been no. I would have known, I knew in my heart that there's no way I was comfortable with letting him cry for extended periods of time. But I think if I would have just completely said, hey, I'm not gonna do this, I would have just like sucked it up. I think the back and forth is what really was killing me. Also, maybe a hot take, and I feel bad because I also recommended the sleep consultant to some people at the time when I first started. I would not hire a sleep consultant again. It was definitely a waste of money. I think that you can definitely find resources online for sleep training if that's something you're interested in doing, and I don't think you need to pay someone an exorbitant amount of money to just essentially encourage you through doing something, especially if it's not even something that you're comfortable doing. I think you just end it right then and there. Whether you decide to sleep train or to not sleep train, I think just not letting every single other person's opinions get to you and affect you so much is really important. I was so desperate to ask everyone around me all their opinions and thoughts, and I wanted to be validated. Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I doing the right thing? And you are gonna get such a mixed bag of opinions. I can't even tell you how many opinions I've got. I've talked to people that are like, we just let the baby cry. Like, we would just leave them in the room at a certain time at night and go in the next morning. And then I talk to people that are like, how could you do that to your child? So it's like, you will really meet multiple ends of the spectrum, and the only opinion about it that really matters is your own. And I understand this is a hot topic for sure, but I think you need to do what works best for your family and what makes you comfortable. And I genuinely do believe that we have an internal intuition of when something is not right. And I think that forcing yourself to ignore that internal compass is not good for anyone involved. If you are feeling like it's not right for you, it's probably not right for you. I wish I could go back and tell myself that, because I convinced myself, no, this is just me not wanting to commit. I let other people and outside voices convince me that this was just something I needed to push through, and the truth is I didn't. And I wish I wouldn't have even tried. Yeah, that basically sums up the experience we had with sleep training. If anyone has more questions for me or absolute specifics, I think I kind of glossed over a lot of the actual specifics of sleep training just because that wasn't really the point of my video. It was more just to share kind of like the emotional experience and how I feel about it in hindsight. But if you have questions about the specifics, definitely let me know. I'll be responding in the comments, and I can even make a follow-up video if anyone's curious. And if you are going through the experience of sleep deprivation or sleep training or struggling in that way, I just want to send you so much love. I wish I could give you a big hug, because like that was genuinely the hardest time of my entire life. It's really hard. Like, I don't want to discount how hard it is to be that sleep deprived. And I hope I've made that clear. I hope I've had like a level of sensitivity talking about sleep training and everything that that meant to us as a family. I know this may get some backlash because a lot of people don't agree with sleep training. And I will say, you know, that's a fair assessment for you. And if you don't agree with sleep training, I completely understand. And you got to do what's comfortable with your family. But I think let's all be really cautious about placing judgment on other moms, because this is such a highly sensitive time, especially in sleep deprivation, that the last thing a mom needs who's already maybe beating themselves up is for other moms to dog on them. There is a way to come beside someone in love if you think that there's a way that they could do something better. Telling someone that they're essentially a horrible mom while they're most likely already struggling very much so is not helpful to anyone involved. So I don't know. I hope that was helpful to someone out there. Bye.